Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Outpost. So a lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, Talon has made a decision. Obviously, she's going to go to Reb and give her the creature to make it so she can open the portal. I thought what's really fascinating is Jonzo the entire time, like, oh, let's do this. Like, why are we meeting in the woods at night and stuff like that? It's like, oh, I told you to come alone. Jonzo's like, I'm no threat at all. Pretend like I'm not even here. And just when she decided, because Talon's like, okay, at the very least, if I give you this, promise you'll help Gwen and you'll help them fight the Primordial with the people you summon and the Valkyrie you summon. It's like, of course. As she's transferring the creature, the Dragonman nods her head like, no, don't trust her. And she doesn't. Because it turns out the Dragonman can get inside of people's heads, which, really quickly, I thought the moment that came up, I'm like, are you going to be the one that ends up exposing Naya because you're able to get inside of her head? It ends up exposing that she's the traitor with everything. But turns out not to be the case. Like I said, I'll get to it soon enough. But I just thought that was kind of interesting. And it turns out the Dragman, it's like, okay, like it was a message from her mother and her mother's mother. And it was a whole pass down of like, okay, we go to a Black Blood and we get them to summon this particular person. Because in her mind, it's just like, this was the orders that were given to me. This is the one name that I have to make sure gets summoned. So she didn't realize what was going to happen. I don't believe she knew that another Black Blood was going to come through. Like, that's my interpretation of it. Maybe she clearly was like, no, I did know. But regardless, what ends up being the situation is she doesn't know which one is which. She thought Talon was the Black Blood, hence why, like, I thought, like, that's why she didn't know another Black Blood, like, Reb was going to come through. But she was like, no, I believe Talon was the one. That's why she did all that she did, because she knew that Dread would lead her to the one, and the one from the prophecy and everything. And it's like, okay, but another step through. So she went with Reb because she wanted to know who Reb was, to kind of essentially see her mind, to see her heart and understand who she was. But in her mind, all she saw was lies, because she knows the moment Reb frees her people, she's going to slaughter all the humans because they're inferior and all the issues they've had with humans in the past. Like, you know, they're not going to be willing to help anyone, no matter what the circumstances may be. So obviously, Jonzo's still reluctant to kind of trust her. What I thought was kind of interesting was like the Dragonman's like fascination with the Plaguelings. Like, she'd get close. I'm like, was something? It seemed like something was going to happen about that. Like, was she going to figure something out? Like, they would kind of snap at her, and she kind of didn't seem phased. But then later on, she kind of jumps back. I guess she's just a kid that maybe she hasn't been around Plaguelings, so it's the first time being like, oh, it's so intriguing. Or maybe it's because of her powers being able to get inside of people's heads. Maybe something registered for her when that happened. I don't know. It's kind of interesting because all the while this is happening, you have Reb going like behind Talon's back and going like, oh, like Queen Rosman, like, let me help you. Gwen, let me help you. I can summon an army of demons without needing the Dragman. I don't need the names because I have them all memorized. I just need that bug so I can open the portal. And it's like, you can have the army by your side and stuff like that. The thing is, because she figured she could appease, like, she knew she could get Gwen's help if she appeased to the fact is that Gwen is in desperate need of an army. That's the whole thing with the Baron too. Like, he has to be such a dick about it. He's like, oh, like, it's so desperate. Like, the fact of the matter is you're not going to use like prison or kind of slave labor to kind of work the mines and weaponry and stuff like that and armor and stuff like that. So it's like, how do you plan on going about getting it done? It's like, oh, I'll pay everyone a fair wage, but you're broke, so how are you going to do that? It's like, oh, you need me. So like, the fact of the matter is you want to be with Rosman, Gwen, you want to continue your legacy, whatever. You got your own selfish reasons, but she'd be more inclined to go along with you if you weren't such an asshole. It's like, you're such a misogynistic douchebag. It's like, of course she's not going to be okay with marrying you, even for the power and the position, like, of like having your army on her side. It's like, I mean, to be fair, who's to say you don't have other ulterior motives as well? I don't know. It seems like too much of a dingus for that to be a thing, but you never know. But luckily, Talon talks to Gwen and reminds us, like, don't trust Reb. The fact of the matter is she's a liar. The Dragon got inside of her head, which Gwen is just kind of, she needs her army because she's so worried about everything. But at the same time, Talon brings up a good point. Is like, do you really like? We have, if you want to, you should wait to the last minute. Like, oh, like the Prime Order's armies are upon us. Because have you even prepared your forces? Like, the last thing you want is for those demons to be summoned and you be surrounded by like hundreds of demons. Let's not forget the trouble that Bacnero caused when he was kind of on his own and out of control. So the last thing you want is a whole bunch of demons kicking it around the outpost. So. But for Talon, it's like, you trust me, right? And she's like, entirely. It's like, so believe that I will have your best interests at heart, which Reb doesn't. Gwen is just a means to an end to get what she wants. And so Gwen just like, I have to admit, like something I haven't admit to anyone. I'm terrified. Because for her, it's like all this was kind of thrust upon her because she doesn't even have, Calcazar by her side, her other father. She doesn't have Garrett. It's just kind of like everything's just kind of falling apart around her. It's like, how am I supposed to lead anyone into battle on my own? Like, she needs others' help, but she can't. You can tell she obviously feels alone. Obviously, Talon or Jonzo are there for her, but it's like, will that be enough? When it's all said and done. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see where things kind of go in that regard. But like I said, Talon said she's going to have her back. So, but sadly, we have Reb killing the Dragman, which I didn't see that coming. I was like, oh, because I thought the Dragman was such an important character. The fact is that she would kill her. I mean, sadly, the Dragman had already written a whole bunch of names for Talon each summon. Like, I am curious though, like, would it be possible for Talon to summon multiple demons and control them all at once, or would it be better to summon one at a time? It's interesting how that works, because, like, for example, like the whole Bacnero situation. Why was it that Bacnero was the one that she kept summoning over and over again, but I guess that's the one that has the most legions, while the others don't? Well, to be fair, it all comes down to a name thing. I forgot. Because I guess when they speak your name, it kind of allows you through the portal. I guess it's the whole thing. Like, I kind of forgot it for a second. Because I forgot that's literally the whole point right now with Reb and everything. But nevertheless, it was just kind of interesting to think about why things particularly worked the way they did. But regardless, it's actually kind of sucky because, like, no matter what the circumstances may have been, the Dragman was just a kid. And the fact is that Reb was able to just do that so easily. It's like, Jesus, that was a child you killed. And that just proves how evil she is, that you can't trust or believe anything out of her mouth. Believe something from her, because she's literally just as bad as the Prime Order. The Prime Order literally has done the same thing, killed innocent children. So it's like, so... Can't trust her, can't trust anyone she's associated with that's locked in this realm of shadow and ash. So it might be a situation where Reb kind of forces her hand. It's like, because I don't know. Gwen's desperate need for an army, she might side with Reb just for the sake of, I need that army, things are going to get bad. I mean, we see things are kind of heating up on the front of the Prime Order. We'll get to that soon enough, but they could march upon them at any point in time, so she is going to need that army. So when the desperation comes, she'll probably rely on Reb, but Reb is going to literally release her people and not just wipe out the Prime Order, wipe out everyone in the Outpost too. Like, no one is going to be safe as long as you're human. So it's kind of a almost damned if you do, damned if you don't, but it's like you need to trust in Talon, because I believe, and I think everyone else kind of believes her to be the chosen one from the prophecy. But to be fair, she's kind of having doubts about it herself. It's easy to kind of believe something when you're like the last of your people, but now you realize there's like others, and it kind of makes you question, you're like, oh, the fact is I can't even do a lot on my own. It's like, am I really ready for this? However, there was one last name hidden in her, the Dragman's hand. The question then becomes, well, was that something the Dragman had hidden, or was that something Reb had placed in her hands that kind of tricked Talon into opening the portal and releasing another one of her allies? And it's hard to say what's going to end up happening about that, but obviously Talon needs to do whatever she can to help Gwen, so she might be willing to take that chance if it means helping against this fight. We'll see. Let's also not forget the whole, obviously, Naya still being held to be like, oh yeah, right, I have to help Jonzo get together with Talon, and she gives him advice about kind of saying sweet things about her eyes. It's like, pretend I'm her, and then she kind of gets caught off guard because like the stuff he says is like beautiful and romantic, because hey, Jonzo's a big softie, but he wears his heart on his sleeve. He is the big romantic, that sweet talker, and he tries to say something sweet about her eyes, and you get where he was trying to go with it. It just didn't come out as well. But you can tell, like, Naya for a second kind of was like, wow, kind of sees him in a different light, which then becomes a situation of, like, that's going to be awkward if anything ever does become of that, because she is the traitor, which not unless it ends up being a thing where Jonzo ends up finding out she is the traitor. But, like, how would anyone figure it out? There's no witnesses around and stuff like that about the whole Dread situation last season, so that does beg the question. I'm curious about that. Obviously, like, you have Jonzo telling Talon all these things, which she laughs at his face, which is like, that's a little heartbreaking. It's like, oh yeah, the person you're like madly in love with laughs in your face like that. It's like, Jesus, and he feels embarrassed about it. She's like, oh, why are you saying this weird stuff? It's like, I'm trying to better myself. Is anything really wrong with that, Talon? And he kind of gets pissed at Nyla, not just her, but himself, because he's embarrassed and everything. She laughed in my face. It's like, no, it's good. It was a nervous laugh. It's like, I don't know whether she really believes that or what, or is she just trying to like build his confidence and be like, no, he might have failed, but I'm gonna let him think it was a half step. It was a step in the right direction. It's like, wait, you've already kissed Talon? I was like, I was wounded. She did it before she like cauterized my wound and everything. But it's like, oh, you've already kind of in that big next step, so just grab her and kiss her. And it's like, huh. And I love Jonzo being like, or she'll kill me. Either she'll be flattered and kind of go with it. It's like, oh yeah, because it was kind of my turn to make the move, or she's going to kill me, which is most likely to happen. The latter, not the former. So like I said, we'll see where things kind of go on that front. On the front of Dread, which I was actually kind of surprised by, I kind of got this spoiled for me for a little bit. It was like that he wasn't going to be in this season a lot, just because I think the actor, I had seen his name on like IMDb, he was only going to be in 2 episodes, so like I said, kind of spoiled that for myself. But I was like, there's no way they're going to remove him from it. It's like they kind of remove him, because like the 3, which apparently they've got powers on their own, it's like, where the hell does that come from? I wonder, is that like a legitimate gem in their head that activates when their powers are activated, or is that kind of like does it just magically pop up when they're activating their power, or is it there underneath their skin and it just glows when their powers? Because it seemed like one has the power to like cripple you. It's almost probably like some psychic pain they kind of inflict upon you, whereas the other, the green, has the power to heal. We never got to see what the other is capable of doing, but they're able to do all that with just their minds without lifting a hand. I think that kind of shows you how powerful they are, kind of why they are in charge and everything. But basically, Dread failed. It's like, yeah, you brought Garrett, but we wouldn't even need him. He could just be dead and we'd be done with it, and we'd be able to, have either Gwen or the Black Blood in front of us dead, but you failed, so you're going to be locked up. So kind of removing him from the rest of the season, which I was actually kind of surprised by, because I thought, kind of labeling him as a main antagonist. But to be fair, they've always referred to him as Ambassador, meaning he isn't like the top dude. So it's just always interesting, because he was always kind of shown to be, but regardless. So there's a whole situation of Garrett getting a piss beat out of him by a guard, but there's this like nurse that's taking care of this healer named Sana. I kept wondering, I'm gonna tell you, like, I know it makes no sense, but there's some part of me is like, you don't think that's like his mom or something? I was like, no, but she looks like she's too young to be his mom. And I was like, but would he not remember what his mom looks like? It's like he was super young when she died. So I was like, yeah, so why wouldn't you be able to recognize your own mom's face? So I was like, what's up with that? I mean, obviously later on, it definitely was kind of like, oh, that's not the case when she kisses him later on. Like I said, we'll get to that. But I was like, okay, there's something up here. It's like, do you really care about him like that? It's like, are you being like, oh, I'm a healer, I'm going to look after anyone? I'm like, I don't know. You work for the Prime Order and whatnot. You work for the 3. It's like, is that really the case? Proceeding, he gets his ass kicked again, Garrett, and she's there to defend him and she's protecting him. And I'm like, okay, something's up here. And it's like, why are you? I was like, yeah, finally, tell us, why are you looking after him? It's like, oh, you remind me of my husband. It's like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then it's like, oh, what happened to your husband? He was killed by Black Blood. I was like, huh? And it's like, oh, all the Black Bloods are going. She's like, we know that there's one remains. I'm like, and that right there is a keynote, because it's like, who talks like that? The Prime Order does. It's kind of, and it's just trying to paint it like, oh, that was all Dread who wiped out that village, which then you can admit, which is so interesting, because like immediately I was like, she's lying and manipulating Garrett. There's key signs beforehand, but that was the big tell, because for her to be like, oh, like Talon killed a whole bunch of Covenant soldiers, which, could she have? Yes, because we haven't seen the full 13 years. Sure, she could have, but she's always been focused on the bones. They've always been her main target because they're the ones who killed her family. She had nothing against the Prime Order specifically. It's kind of like, it is what it is. Her only time fighting against the Prime Order was going after the bones because they had connection. Because like Tamor was one dude she kills on like the first episode. So that dude, Tamor, whatever the case may be, it's beside the point. So it just didn't make sense. It just didn't seem like Talon. Like I said, it seemed like she was more focused on the bones than anyone else. But I was like, sure, you potentially could see that, I guess. But you could see the whole point was like to get him starting to doubt in Talon and eventually doubt in Rosman. It's like, oh, she's a liar. I'm like, are you going to twist something around and be like, actually, I'm Rosman. She was Gwen the entire time. And you're going to think, but it's like, no, let's not forget Gwen's father Calcazar, but it's like not unless you're trying to make it seem like, oh, Calcazar was a part of the lie and that, oh, like Garrett was stupid enough to believe it. And it's like, oh, Gwen cares about me. She's like, oh, I sent letter to Gwen. Oh, she's already placed you as commander type of thing, which we know total bullshit because that was literally a point that they made, like, wasn't it last episode, that she still hadn't found a commander just because she doesn't want to replace Garrett. No one can replace Garrett. That was the whole point that Talon had to kind of sink into her, like, knowing that no one can because Garrett is unique. So, but you see that Garrett is kind of giving into it a little bit. He's kind of letting her words kind of get to him, but at the same time, it's like, but not enough to kind of abandon Gwen because he cares too much about her. And, he's a very loyal person. And it ends up with things kind of ending pretty bad. Like, it looked like Garrett's entire eye was missing. Now, whether he was outright dead, it's hard to say. Like, whether or not that one of the lady of the three resurrected him or just healed his wounds. But it turns out the dude that does the torturing and the healer Sana are husband and wife. I was like, okay, yeah. Because I was at points, I was like, okay, so is there actually some truth? Because, like, the fact is, I was like, okay. So I was thinking maybe there might be some truth to what she said. Because I knew it didn't make any sense. Because I was like, it couldn't be Talon. Definitely couldn't be Reb because she's been locked up for the past couple centuries. So definitely couldn't have been her. And there's no other Black Bloods running around. So I'm like, that's why I was like, yeah. But I was like, if there was a chance, like, because she was like, oh, the three had no idea what was up with what Dredd had planned, which we know is total bullshit because they were like, you should have killed the Black Blood, so they definitely knew what was up. But the thing is, I'm like, maybe she didn't know, maybe she was kind of a blind follower, but it's like, nah, she's neck deep in all of this, once again trying to manipulate Garrett. We do see at the end, it seemed like his eyes open a little bit, so I'm curious, did he overhear some of the conversation so he knows she's playing him? Or maybe, next episode he's going to play along and be like, yeah, let her think she's winning and use it as an opportunity to escape. I guess that's why they were able to kind of keep him alive. Maybe it wasn't 100% on, well, maybe it was her talents as a healer. Well, she even made reference to, like, the damage that he has sustained from the torturing, the negative reinforcement, essentially, to kind of break his will. He sustained so much damage, even her healing wasn't enough to kind of fix it. So, pretty brutal situation, but it's kind of interesting. But like I said, this all circles back to, like, the three are like, oh, like, you've got like another day or so to kind of get results of this situation. If not, we're just going to go with the other plan and we're going to march upon the outpost. So like I said, things are kind of heating up on all sides. I'm curious to see what happens with Withers. He knows that Garrett's not out there, but I'm curious, like, is there going to be a blood trail he follows back? I mean, to be fair, that's like the capital, so there's no doing that, but maybe he'll go back to Gwen and be like, Garrett's alive. If anything, he might be captured by an enemy that might push Gwen to be like, oh, we need to fight, we need to save Garrett. So turning to Talon, which is like, Talon, do you have that army of demons? She's like, at least got one, but does she trust this whole situation? Is Gwen going to betray her, and work with Reb, because it means not only fighting the Prime Order but also saving Garrett? So maybe that kind of cloud her judgment. It's kind of like a not willing to, kind of almost getting her judgment clouded by her heart. We shall see. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.